So you want to play Vanessa in the Bazaar. Well, having made well over 100 Bazaar videos, being in a couple of playtests, I now want to share my Vanessa top tips with you. So let's get to it.
You should know, I'm a bit of a legend on Pelago.
Hello, my name is Artificer, but you can call me Greg, and I really enjoy Vanessa. She is the hero I play first every day I log in, and I can't recommend her enough to new players, as she has no weird mechanics like Dooley, and doesn't rely on economy game like Pygmalion can. First, let's get to know Vanessa's playstyles. While every hero can play in any way, and you can even pick up an entire build of items belonging to another hero, most merchants you see will offer you Vanessa-specific items, which will lean into certain playstyles. The majority of Vanessa's items are weapons, or some sort of utility to make your weapons better. So, if you want to go into a multi-weapon or single buffed weapon build, you absolutely can with ease while playing Vanessa. Your other options include burn builds, poison builds, and full tank builds, but none of these are as common for Vanessa as her arsenal of weapons. Tip number 2 is to learn her combos. While traditional builds don't really exist in the Bazaar, and we tend to look more to general synergies due to the nature of Vanessa's items being very interlinked, there are a lot of combos that can lead to devastating results. In all of my testing, Vanessa had the potential to play the fastest, with Dooley in a close second, and just like Dooley, could reach infinite looping damage with the right setup. The key to Vanessa's crazy combos are on-use effects, and utilising her incredibly low cooldown items. Let me share a couple of examples, although remember this is the Bazaar, so you can do the same with similar items if they come during your run. These are just examples so that I can more easily explain it to you guys. The blunderbuss is a medium weapon with 6 ammo, which at its gold tier does 20 damage every 4 seconds. But its passive is where the power of the item really lies. When you burn, use this. If you can scale this weapon through skills or other items so that it's dealing any significant amount of damage, or especially if you even give it lifesteal, and then throw a burn build around it, this can represent a very dangerous build. But that isn't the key to insanely powerful Vanessa gameplay. That isn't a combo. The true potential is unlocked with skills like heated shells, which will infinitely loot the blunderbuss so long as it has ammo, which you can solve either with an item like Crow's Nest or a skill like Tracer Fire, and flashy reload to give your blunderbuss a ton of crit chance, which then reloads it. You can also just sell enough gunpowder so your enemy dies before you ever run out of ammo, and don't forget to throw in a repeater or skills like one shot, one kill to really amp up your damage. The other example is to utilise holsters to create the quickest build of all. Holsters is a small item with a passive effect. At the silver tier, at the start of every fight, it gives your small items haste for 2 seconds. That might not sound crazy at first, but when you realise most of Vanessa's small items have a 4 or even 3 second cooldown, you begin to realise you can trigger your entire board within the first 2 seconds of a fight. If you have built the board correctly, and accounted for our other tips, you can have the shortest 10 win streak in history. Just remember, this tip wasn't that the blunderbuss and holsters are OP. They will likely get nerfed or power crept in the future. This was to bring your attention to how combos can make Vanessa unstoppable. Tip number 3 covers one thing that Vanessa can struggle with though, scaling. Pygmalion has very effective and very obvious scaling, and Dooley by the very nature of the core will always scale well. But Vanessa has no central mechanic or game system that aids her in scaling into the late game. If you've lost some early fights and you haven't quite found your build yet, you are going to need to look for something to help you scale, so the likes of the 50,000 HP Pygmalion or 50,000 shielding Dooley can be broken, and so you don't die to the Pygmalion dogs or llamas with 10,000 damage, or an infinite loop of infinite scaling Dooley damage. Vanessa scaling options fall off pretty hard in the later days. Skills like Iron Sharpens Iron, Lifting, and Tinkerer all scale in such small amounts that they are fantastic in the early game, and somewhat useless later on. So we need to find our scaling elsewhere. My best advice is to keep your options open about your build as you go into the late game. Maybe you're running a Langzhan or Sniper build, which, honorable mention, Langzhan can scale incredibly well if it's upgraded early. But let's say you're playing a not very well scaled Langzhan or a Sniper build, and you haven't been able to get that damage going just yet. But if you head to a Pygmalion merchant and you pick up something like Spices, you might just unlock a 10 win run on the spot as your damage is literally doubled. Or maybe you're running a Firehouse build that is struggling to keep alive, but you spot a Jules, Shielding, or Burn merchant, and you go and pick up some Oven Gloves. Almost instantly, you're never dying. This is part of what makes the Bazaar beautiful. If you find yourself in uncharted waters, throw away the map, it won't help you. Look for the unexpected, read every damn item carefully, and try to piece together a combo. But failing that, pick whatever sounds good. I can promise you I've seen weirder. In fact, I'm looking through all the Vanessa builds people reported throughout testing, and by far, she has the most builds containing other heroes' items when going into later days. And tip number 4 is a bit of a follow-up to that. Don't find yourself in those unnecessary uncharted waters to begin with. If you're playing Vanessa normally, and by that I mean aggressively, you need to win early. Other heroes couldn't care less about their day 1 fight. It's just 1 damage if you lose, that is nothing significant. But for aggressive heroes like Vanessa, who spike early and don't scale well, delaying your 10 wins by going anything beyond day 10 can be disastrous. So you simply need to win every day. Now, as the days go on, this is a little harder to enforce, and if you get to day 7 and drop a match to a dually who pieced Exodia together already, then I'm sorry, but that just happens. At least you tanked that ghost and no one else has to face it. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that you should at least be trying your hardest to specifically win at least days 1 and 2, which should be very achievable for Vanessa. Unless you find items that you really want to build around early, for me, let's say I get offered a lighthouse on my first silver tier item event, like that day 1, event 1, that's fine. Play the cool build around the awesome item you love, that's cool, just do that. But if that doesn't happen, pick items that might be useful to your build, but that definitely won't ruin your chances at winning days 1 and 2. I'm not telling you to buy cannon every run like I ended up doing, because you'll win the first 5 days and be miserable after that. But at least try to ensure your build is in a position to win those first few fights. Try to get the next level so that you have 2 or 3 times the health of your opponent, and try to keep scaling items like fishing net to a minimum unless you really want to go late game into days 15 and 16. Win your first few days, and your chances at a 10-win run on Vanessa skyrocket. Last but not least, a little general tip that is by far the most apparent when playing Vanessa, and something you really need to keep an eye on, especially in your small item builds. This is also a nice bonus one for dually, and that's ordering. It is far less important than in other auto battlers, but your ordering does play a role in the Bazaar. Of course, if you have items that grant adjacency bonuses, like incendiary rounds for example, you need to put the correct items next to that. But once you've locked those positionals in, think about the order of your items. This is because of how cooldowns work in the Bazaar. If 2 items trigger at the same time, let's say for example you have a grape shot and a throwing knives, which both have a 3-second cooldown. These don't actually trigger at the same time. When 2 items trigger at the same time during a fight, the items are prioritized left to right. So if you had throwing knives on the left of grape shot, then after 3 seconds your throwing knives would trigger, and then immediately after that your grape shot would trigger. If you look at the ability of these 2 items, you'll start to see why ordering is important. Throwing knives gains crit chance when other ammo items are used, so if grape shot is to the left of it and triggers first, throwing knives will get a plus 15% crit chance straight away if the item was at gold tier. Grape shot reloads every time an ammo item is used. In this scenario, when we just have these 2 items, if throwing knives were on the left, it would potentially trigger before grape shot used its last piece of ammo. Then grape shot would fire. Your grape shot would then need to wait a full 3 seconds for throwing knives to trigger again before grape shot would reload and start charging. However, if we swap grape shot to the left just like we wanted for the dagger crit chance anyway, once your grape shot fires, throwing knives instantly reloads it when it fires, so no cooldown time is wasted, and they're both firing as frequently as possible and both gaining the maximum benefit for their partnership. Now that concludes our top tips for Vanessa, but for other guides, gameplay and more, you know what to do.